Pokemon Black. I'm what you could call a collector of bootleg Pokemon games. I'm not talking about the ROM hacks you find online to give you a new experience. I'm talking about the cartridges that people have modified long before ROM hacks existed. Things like Pokemon Quartz and Jade. It's amazing the frequency with which you can find them at pawn shops, Goodwill, flea markets, and such. They're generally pretty fun, even if some of them are unplayable, which they quite often are. The mistranslations and poor quality make them unintentionally humorous. I've been able to find most of the ones that I've played online, like eBay and things like that, but there's one I haven't seen any mention of that I bought at a flea market uh, quite a while ago. Here's a picture of the cartridge in case anyone recognizes it. Unfortunately, when I moved 2 years ago, I lost the game, so I can't provide you with any screen caps. Sorry. The game started with the familiar Nidorino and Gengar, intro of Red and Blue version. However, the press start screen had been altered. Red was there, but the Pokemon did not cycle through. It also said Black version under the Pokemon logo. Now, we're not talking about the more recent Pokemon Black. As you can see from the cartridge picture, this was clearly something different. Upon selecting New Game, the game started with the whole Professor Oak speech, and it quickly became evident that the game was essentially Pokemon Red version. When I went to the starter selection, if you look at your Pokemon, there was only one option. A Pokemon just simply titled Ghost. The Pokemon was level 1. It had the sprite of the ghosts that are encountered in Lavender Town before obtaining the Sylph Scope. It had one attack, Curse. I know that there's a real move named Curse, but the attack didn't exist in the Generation 1 games, so this clearly had been hacked in. Defending Pokemon were unable to attack Ghost. It would only say that they were too scared to move. When the move Cursed was used in battle, the screen would cut to black. The cry of the defending Pokemon would be heard, but it was distorted, played at a much lower pitch than normal. The battle screen would then reappear, and the defending Pokemon would be gone. If used in battle against a trainer, when the Pokeballs representing their Pokemon would reappear in the corner, they would have one fewer Pokeball. The implication was that the Pokemon had died. What's even stranger is that after defeating a trainer and seeing Red received 200 for winning, the battle commands would appear again. If you select Run, the battle would end, as it normally does, but you could also select Curse. If you did, upon returning to the overworld, the trainer's sprite would be gone. After leaving and re-entering the area, the spot where the trainer had been would be replaced with a tombstone like the ones at Lavender Town. The move Curse was not usable in all instances. It would fail against other ghost Pokemon. It would also fail if it was used against trainers that you would have to face again, such as your rival or Giovanni. However, it was usable in your final battle against them. I figured this was the gimmick of the game, allowing you to use previously uncapturable ghosts, and because Curse made the game so easy, I essentially just used it throughout the whole adventure. The game changed quite a bit after defeating the Elite Four. After viewing the Hall of Fame, which consisted of Ghost and a couple of Pokemon I used for HMs, the screen cut to black. A box appeared with the words, "Many years later." It was then cut to Lavender Town. An old man was standing, looking at tombstones. You then realized this old man was your character. The man moved at only half your normal walking speed. You no longer had any Pokemon with you, not even Ghost, who up to this point had been impossible to remove from your party by depositing in the PC. The overworld was entirely empty. There were no people at all. There were still the tombstones of the trainers that you used Cursed on. You could go pretty much anywhere in the overworld at this point, though your movement was limited by the fact you had no Pokemon to use HMs, and regardless of where you went, the music of Lavender Town continued on an infinite loop. After wandering for a while, I found that if you go through Diglett Cave, one of the cuttable bushes that had normally blocked the path on the other side is no longer there, allowing you to advance and return to Pallet Town. Upon entering your house and going to the exact tile where you start the game, the screen would cut to black. Then a sprite of Caterpie appeared. It was replaced by a Weedle, then a Pidgey, I soon realized, as the Pokemon progressed from Rattata to Blastoise, that these were all of the Pokemon I had used Curse on. After the end of my rival's team, a youngster appeared, and then a bug catcher. These were the trainers I had cursed. Throughout the sequence, the Lavender Town music was playing, but it was slowly decreasing in pitch. By the time of your rival appearing on screen, it was little more than a demonic rumble. Another cut to black. A few moments later, the battle screen suddenly appeared. Your trainer's sprite was now that of an old man, the same one that teaches you how to catch Pokemon in Viridian City. Ghost appeared on the other side, along with the words, "Ghost wants to fight." You couldn't use items. You had no Pokemon. If you tried to run, you couldn't escape. The only option was fight. Using fight would immediately cause you to use struggle, which didn't affect Ghost, but did chip off a little bit of your own HP. When it was Ghost's turn to attack, it would simply say nothing. Eventually, when your HP reached a critical point, Ghost would use Curse. The screen cuts to black a final time. Regardless of the buttons you pressed, you were permanently stuck in a black screen. At that point, the only thing you could do was turn off the Game Boy. When you played again, New Game was the only option. The game had erased the file. I played through this hacked game many, many times, and every time the game ended with this sequence. Several times I didn't use Ghost at all, though he was impossible to remove from the party. In these cases, it didn't show any Pokemon or trainers and simply cut the climactic battle with Ghost. I'm not sure what the motives were behind the creator of this hack. It wasn't widely distributed, so presumably it wasn't for monetary gain. It was a very well done bootleg. It seems like he was trying to convey a message, though it seems I'm the sole receiver of this message. I'm not entirely sure what it was. The inevitability of death? The pointlessness of it? Perhaps he was simply trying to morbidly inject death and darkness into a children's game. Regardless, this children's game has made me think, and it has made me cry.